I was 16 at the time. My parents were away on a short vacation to celebrate their 20th anniversary. I acted sad when they left, but really, I was super excited to be alone and have the whole house to myself. They left Friday morning after I went to school. When I got home, I made a quick snack with the food they left me, then went to the living room to play video games for the entire night. I had no school the next day, and nobody was home to tell me to go to bed. So I wanted to stay up as late as possible and enjoy the time I had. I was playing online with my friends for a while, but my buddies weren't as lucky as me. Around 10 p.m., all of my friends had to hop offline. Come 11 or maybe closer to 12, even my neighbor's dog started barking. They have a huge dog, so it was really loud, even though their house was a good distance away from mine. I kept playing, but through the headphones, I could still hear the dog barking like crazy for what had been a whole 3 or 4 minutes. It was really late, so I was both concerned and annoyed. When I found a good time to pause my game, I got up quickly and looked out the side window over at their house. None of their lights were on, but their dog was still barking. I was pretty sure it was barking from inside the house too. Then, I saw a man walking through their yard and onto the sidewalk. It was dark and hard to see, and I didn't notice where he came from. Knowing the dog was probably barking at the guy by their house and seeing him walking away, I went back to playing my game. I played for another 15 minutes or so before someone knocked on my door. It made me jump, but I was in the middle of a match, so I couldn't just get up. I kept playing, hearing the knocks continue. When the match ended, I took my headphones off and heard the knocks again. With my headphones off, I realized it was coming from the back door, not the front. Then I remembered how late it was and got really confused but also a bit agitated. What could they possibly want from me this bad to be continually knocking on the door at midnight? I stood up, but then I decided I didn't want them to see me and thought that if they realized nobody was home, they'd leave and come back some other time. If they stayed, then I'd know something was wrong. All the blinds were closed, so I didn't have to worry about that. I sat back down and continued playing. No more knocks came for a while after that. I played until almost 2 a.m. I was really tired, and my eyes were struggling from staring at the TV for so long. I took my headphones off, turned off the TV, and went upstairs to get in bed. I lay in bed for a few minutes, maybe not very long, when I heard something outside. It was a car pulling into the driveway and stopping right in front of the garage. I stayed in bed, listening carefully. Someone got out of the car, closed their door, then walked around the house. I lost track of the footsteps once they made their way toward the backyard. A shiver ran through me. I got up and walked down the stairs slowly, still trying to not let anyone know I was home. But about halfway down the stairs, I heard someone by the back door. It sounded like they were messing with the lock. I ran back upstairs and called the police. I tried not to sound panicked, probably because I was a stupid 16-year-old and wanted to be cool, but they dispatched some officers to my house and told me to wait for 10 minutes until they arrived. I said okay and hung up the phone, then locked my bedroom door and waited. A minute later, there were a few noises coming from the back door. Then it opened. I heard someone walk in, then go into the living room. It sounded like they were taking things and putting them in a box. They moved quickly through each room downstairs, but after they went through the kitchen, they left, going back outside. I heard their car door open and close. I was relieved for just an instant before I heard footsteps reapproaching the house, coming back inside, and into the last room downstairs. I guess they dropped the box off and came back for more. At this point, I was regretting not showing myself because the person downstairs really seemed to think nobody was home. He was making a lot of noise and was confident enough to come in for seconds. I was still sitting in my room, just listening to this horrible event taking place below me when the footsteps started coming up the stairs. They went straight for my parents' bedroom, which was right next to mine. They were in there for a while, then came out and walked up to my door. The handle shook, then the footsteps immediately left back down the stairs and out of the house. The car pulled out and was gone in seconds. My heart was beating rapidly, and I was trying to control my breathing. I thought I was seconds away from having to fight for my life when the police finally arrived. I told them everything. They called my parents too. After they checked around and finished getting information from me, the officers were confident that the person wasn't coming back, now that he knew I was inside the home. Aside from all that, my console was stolen along with a bunch of other expensive things. So, not only was I horrified all week, but I was also left with nothing to do until my parents got home. I'm just happy that whoever was behind that door ran away and didn't try to break inside, because if he saw me, I don't know what would have happened. Having a basement in our home has always been an adventure for my siblings and me. We turned it into our playroom, a place where we could let our imaginations run wild without the fear of breaking anything valuable. As I got older, the basement became a quieter place, a storage area for old toys and forgotten items. It was a space I rarely visited, especially at night. One evening, however, that changed forever. My parents had gone out for the night, leaving me alone in the house. I was 16, perfectly capable of taking care of myself. I decided to make the most of the evening by watching a movie in the living room. It was a quiet night, the only sounds coming from the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the house settling. I had just settled into the couch with a bowl of popcorn when I heard a faint noise. At first, I thought it was part of the movie, but when I muted the TV, the sound persisted. It was a low, rhythmic thumping, like someone tapping on a door. I strained to listen, trying to pinpoint the source. It seemed to be coming from the basement. I felt a chill run down my spine. The basement was always a bit eerie at night, but I reminded myself that it was just an old house with old house noises. I tried to ignore it, turning the volume back up on the TV, but the thumping continued, growing louder and more insistent. It was as if someone, or something, was trying to get my attention. Curiosity and a growing sense of unease compelled me to investigate. I paused the movie and stood up, hesitating for a moment before grabbing my phone. I walked slowly towards the basement door, my footsteps echoing in the silent house. The door was slightly ajar, and the thumping grew louder as I approached. "Hello," I called out, my voice sounding small and unsure. There was no response, only the relentless thumping. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open and flicked on the light. The narrow wooden stairs creaked under my weight as I descended. The basement smelled of damp earth and old memories, the shadows deep and foreboding. The thumping had stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence. I scanned the room, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. Everything seemed in its place. The old couch, the boxes of holiday decorations, the dusty shelves, but something felt off. My gaze landed on the far corner, where the basement door to the outside was located. It was slightly open, swaying gently as if it had just been moved. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew I had locked that door. I walked towards it, my hands trembling as I reached out to close it. That's when I saw the footprints. Muddy, fresh footprints leading from the door to the basement stairs. Panic surged through me. Someone had been in the basement, and they might still be inside the house. I spun around, my eyes darting to every shadow, every dark corner. The basement felt oppressive, the walls closing in. I backed away towards the stairs, my mind racing. I needed to get out, call the police. As I turned to run up the stairs, I saw a figure standing at the top. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dark hoodie that obscured his face. He blocked my only escape route, his presence filling me with a paralyzing fear. He took a step towards me and I bolted. I ran deeper into the basement, searching for any place to hide. I dove behind the old couch, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I could hear him descending the stairs, his footsteps slow and deliberate. He was hunting me. I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. The operator's voice was a lifeline, and I whispered my situation, trying to stay as quiet as possible. "Stay on the line," she said. "Help is on the way." The intruder's footsteps grew louder, closer. I peeked out from behind the couch and saw him searching the basement, checking behind boxes and peering into dark corners. I ducked back, trying to make myself as small as possible. Minutes felt like hours. The basement light flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. I could hear the distant wail of sirens. The intruder seemed to sense the approaching danger. He stopped his search, his head snapping towards the stairs. In a swift motion, he bolted back up the steps and out the basement door. I stayed hidden, clutching the phone to my chest until I heard the pounding of police footsteps. They found me behind the couch, tears streaming down my face, and led me upstairs to safety. The intruder was long gone, but they assured me they would search the area. My parents arrived shortly after, their faces pale with worry. The police explained that the intruder had likely been watching the house, waiting for a moment when I was alone. They promised increased patrols in the neighborhood and urged us to install better locks and security cameras. Even now, the fear of being home alone lingers, a shadow that follows me in the quiet moments. I'm 34 and live alone in a rather large house. I was married and had kids, but I got divorced the year before. This house is meant for a large family, but I've never had the time to move out, so I just stayed. Being the only person in a large house, a lot of sounds resonate through the empty space all the time. The most common sound was from the air conditioner. It would make a hollow thud sound in the walls, which would then resonate through the house, sounding much louder than it actually was. Don't get me wrong, it was creepy at first, but I got used to it. Anyway, this happened on a Thursday night after I got home from a long day at work. I went straight upstairs, took off my work clothes, put on something more comfortable, and jumped on the bed to turn on the TV in my room. I didn't spend much time downstairs because I didn't need to. I had everything I needed in my room, so the only time I would be downstairs for more than a couple of minutes was when I was in the kitchen. I laid back, resting my eyes. After a moment, through the sound of the TV playing, I heard that familiar sound. I didn't even open my eyes and just continued to rest. An hour later, somehow having not fallen asleep, I got up, feeling hungry for dinner. I turned the TV off and opened my bedroom door, and almost on cue, that banging sound resonated again. I'd never recalled the AC making that sound more than once or twice a day, especially without touching the thermostat. I walked across the hallway to where the upstairs thermostat was. It was off, which meant that it had been off all day. I wasn't fully scared yet, though. My initial reaction was to try and figure out why the air conditioner was running while I had it off. I was really just upset that this inconvenience had to happen tonight. I went downstairs into the kitchen. The only thing I had left in my fridge was leftover pizza from a few days ago, so I set the oven and heated it up. I stood in the kitchen on my phone while I waited. Again, this time the sound was much louder and felt like it even shook the house. This was the moment I started to get scared. I hadn't convinced myself fully that this wasn't just the AC acting up, but other possibilities were starting to creep into my mind. Once the pizza was done, I ate quickly, then figured it was best to go into the basement and check the AC unit. I didn't want to be creeped out the whole night. I just wanted to know what it was and be done with it. I opened the basement door and flicked on the lights. There was nothing special about this basement. It was unfinished and just had some old furniture along with some boxes with seasonal decorations in them. I walked down the steps to the bottom and then walked over to the AC unit. I wasn't sure what to look for, so I was kind of just looking around for anything obviously wrong. While I didn't find anything, I did notice that it was completely off. Nothing was running. It had to be something else, which was not giving me the peace of mind I was looking for. I started walking back to the stairs, planning to check some other rooms on the first floor, but just as I started walking, I saw a figure right under the steps. The lighting was dim, but his eyes gave away his position. The person was crouched down behind some boxes under the stairs. I knew he saw me looking at him as we made eye contact. I had completely stopped walking. In hindsight, I wish I had pretended not to notice and continued walking, but in the moment, I couldn't help my reaction. Once I snapped out of it, I sprinted up the steps and slammed the door behind me, locking it shut and putting a kitchen chair up against it. I didn't hear him following me, so I took it as a sign that he wasn't here to fight. I called the police while standing next to the basement door in case he tried to escape. I was scared, but I also didn't want him to get away. I stayed on the line until the lady said the officers were 3 minutes away. Then I heard it again. The person down there was hitting something over and over, heavy blows hitting something solid. It seemed like either the concrete floor or the wall from the resonance of the hits. It felt too heavy not to destroy the wall, so I assumed it was the floor, but I had no idea why. After maybe 20 hits, it went silent. Moments later, officers came to the door. They captured the man downstairs quickly, and he surprisingly looked like a very normal man. Regular clothes, well-groomed. He didn't look like someone who would break into a home. The officers brought up 2 tools as well, a thick crowbar and a large hammer. After detaining the man and putting him in the car, one of them brought me into the basement to show me what was going on. In the far corner, opposite the AC unit, there was rubble and plywood shards all over the ground. I don't know how I didn't notice it. On the wall, though, were huge indents of metal. It was almost unrecognizable, but it was a small old safe that was built into the wall. The damage done to the wall safe looked insane, and I was shocked that it hadn't given in. It's funny, though, because there was nothing in it. I do remember the seller mentioning it and giving me a code when we moved in, but I never bothered to stash anything in there. The officer I was talking to said they'd seen it before in a lot of the big homes around the area, as a lot of burglars go straight to the safe and often don't lose anything else in the house. Of everything, the fact that the man looked so normal is what creeped me out the most. Just knowing that literally anyone could be doing things like this is not a comforting thought. I ended up repairing the wall and just covering the safe. I also plan to move out soon and get a smaller house that's easier for me to stay alert in because this situation could have been a lot worse than it was, and I don't want to take any chances next time. I had never been afraid of thunderstorms before. Growing up in the suburbs, they were a common occurrence, often bringing a sense of coziness as I curled up with a book or movie. But that changed one stormy night when I was left home alone. My parents had gone out of town for the weekend, leaving me in charge of the house. It was supposed to be a quiet, relaxing evening. I had a marathon of my favorite TV shows lined up and a bowl of popcorn ready. The storm began with distant rumbles of thunder, gradually growing louder as the wind picked up, howling through the trees. The rain pelted against the windows, creating a rhythmic, almost soothing background noise. I was halfway through an episode when I heard a faint knock at the door. I paused the show, straining to listen. The knock came again, louder this time. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly midnight. My heart rate quickened. Who would be knocking at this hour and in such weather? I decided to ignore it, hoping the person would go away. But the knocking persisted, growing more insistent. I crept to the front window and peeked through the curtain. Through the streaks of rain on the glass, I could make out a shadowy figure standing on the porch. The figure was tall and broad, with a hood pulled low over his face, obscuring his features. Fear gripped me. I debated whether to open the door or stay hidden. My parents had always warned me about the dangers of opening the door to strangers, especially at night. I decided to play it safe and remain silent, hoping he would leave. The knocking stopped abruptly, and for a moment, I felt a wave of relief. But then I heard a new sound, the door handle rattling. The figure was trying to force his way in. Panic set in, and I backed away from the door, my mind racing. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hand shaking as I explained the situation to the operator. "Stay on the line," the operator instructed. "Help is on the way. Find a safe place to hide." I rushed to the closet in the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. I crouched down, keeping the phone pressed to my ear. The operator's calm voice was a lifeline amidst the chaos. I could hear the intruder still struggling with the door, the sounds amplified by the storm outside. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind, made me jump. I clung to the hope that the police would get here in time. Finally, I heard the distant wail of sirens approaching. Relief washed over me, but I stayed hidden, not daring to move until I was sure it was safe. The sounds outside shifted. Muffled voices, a shout, and then silence. Moments later, there was a knock on the closet door. "It's the police," a voice called. "You're safe now. You can come out." I hesitated, then slowly opened the door. Two officers stood in the hallway, their expressions reassuring. I stepped out, still trembling, and they led me to the living room. The front door was wide open, rain blowing in. The intruder was nowhere in sight. "Do you know this man?" one of the officers asked, holding up a photograph. I shook my head, my eyes wide. "No. Who is he?" "He's a local criminal," the officer explained. "He breaks into homes during storms, hoping the noise will cover his actions. You're lucky you called when you did." The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had come face to face with a dangerous intruder, and it was only the quick response of the police that had kept me safe. That night left a lasting mark on me. The sound of rain, once comforting, now filled me with unease. Thunderstorms became a source of anxiety rather than comfort. I installed extra locks on the doors and made sure never to be home alone during a storm if I could help it. Even now, years later, I can't shake the memory of that shadowy figure on my porch. The fear and helplessness I felt in those moments are etched into my mind. Sometimes, a quiet night at home can turn into a nightmare.